Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Happy birthday, Irene, and special thanks Amanda Vasquez and Marco Colombo. I fed all the street cats yesterday and today. I didn't write an essay yesterday, but I should write one every day. It doesn't take me long to write, and when you're good at something, you should do it as often as possible. I did my podcast yesterday, just like I do every day. The podcasts are going great. Speaking and reading is something that comes natural to me. Everyone has a podcast nowadays, and many people do them for 2 or 3 hours at a time. But the majority of podcasts are between 20 and 30 minutes long. 75% of all podcasts are between 20 and 30 minutes long. I've noticed a lot of NBA players do podcasts, and so do stand-up comics, but you usually just see clips of their 3 hour, 2 hour podcast. If you actually sit down and watch the entire 3 hour podcast of a basketball player or a stand-up comedian, you notice there's a lot of downtime. The interesting parts and the jokes of the comedians are few and far between. A lot of times they're just trying to kill time, make things go as long as possible. I watched part of Theo Vonn's podcast yesterday, and even though I had seen clips before, I was generally surprised about how slow and boring it was. He had another comedian on to help him get through it, to give him someone to talk to and bounce off of. I don't think Theo would be able to do it himself, at least not for 3 hours. He would have to write a 3 hour comedy act. I don't have anything against Theo Vonn, but at one point during the podcast I watched, they were trying to talk about something serious, and Theo was reading so poorly from a sheet of paper, and I laughed. I hadn't heard someone read out loud so bad in years, especially an entertainer. They were taking every joke and just stretching it out as far as they could. They took this weird ass placenta joke for literally 20 minutes. They were talking about it. It made me feel good knowing that no matter how big someone is, no matter how much money someone has, they still can't do what I do. They still can't read like I can read, and they can't speak like I can speak. Yes, it's a fact. They are successful at stand up, but that's also an area where I know I can excel in. Just because I haven't done it yet doesn't mean I can't do it, and it doesn't mean that I won't do it. I haven't had much opportunities. I've had a much more difficult life than Theo Vonn and just about every other stand-up comic or podcast host out there. Sometimes people have to solve other problems before they can have an opportunity to stand on stage and tell jokes or do a podcast. But things change. If you hang in there long enough, things will change. I feed almost 100 street cats every morning. I've been doing it every day for 4 years, but it started with just four cats. And out of the first four, three are left. And even though I'd never pet these 3 in 4 years, they're still hanging in there. And just yesterday morning, one of the original four, who only has one eye, and I call her One Eye, while she was eating, I reached down and I petted her a few times, and she kind of perked up. She probably wasn't expecting anyone to pet her ever again, but she hung in there and things got better. She had an opportunity to accept pets from the nice man who feeds her, and she took it. Just because someone has millions of followers or millions of dollars does not make them better or more skillful at any particular thing. I remember once I told somebody during a live stream that I don't want to be Andy Milonakis. Okay. If you know who Andy Milonakis is, that's understandable. I'm very happy with who I am. I'm very proud to be tall, well spoken, highly intelligent, and good looking. Okay. Nothing against Andy Milonakis, but I don't want to be him. I wouldn't ever switch places with him. And the people that were watching the podcast couldn't understand that. Like, what? Andy Milonakis has millions of followers and you don't. Like acting like that's what it's all about in life, how many followers you have. And it's just like blew my mind. Like, put us side by side. Who would want to be Andy Milonakis? I mean, who would pick him over me? Like, seriously. Have you seen my silhouette? My name is Mr.G, Gregory Brandt. And if you don't like it, that's your problem. Aloha.